Hey everyone, a big welcome to the Forge Ahead show, hosted by me, Nick Elston, inspirational speaker, creator of unique mental health engagement strategies, a transformational speaking coach, and a mentor to have in your corner. The Forge Ahead show brings you the storytellers, the influencers, the people who have gone from adversity to excitement, forging something better, something beautiful, something powerful. So stay tuned, dive in, and be inspired by today's very special guest. Hey everyone, a big welcome back to the Forge Ahead show, season 2, episode 12. My, the time is absolutely flying, and another amazing guest, as I kind of gave you a little taster of last week's episode, all the way from the US of A, the wonderful, the amazing Kate Holmes. Big round of applause for Kate.
Nick, it is so awesome to be here. I love this.
Genuinely so excited to get on the show. Honestly, I'm kind of a bit fanboying on you now. It's crazy.
And I fangirl on you, so this is brilliant.
So our paths first crossed through my work with Next Gen Planners here in the UK and in the financial wellbeing arena generally. And then that kind of took me on to your radio show in the good old US of A. And we've not looked back since. Even last night, as we record this, last night I was running a session for your community. Amazing community, by the way. And
thank you.
First and foremost, tell everybody about you, who you are, what you do, what you're about, and where you're from.
Sure. So my name is Kate Holmes. I am a contrarian by birth, so I imagine that'll come through in the story. I tend to see everybody going one direction, and I run as far in the opposite direction as I can. I love traveling all over the world. I love culture. I love just seeing all the similarities of humans around the world, whether they have lots of money or no money. That's really my biggest passion in life. I've been to over 50 countries, most of them by myself, which I just love. And I am originally from Seattle. I've lived in Australia, graduated university with a degree in photography, which is not the normal path into financial planning. But I've been in financial services. I think this is my 17th year, and I've done a little bit of everything, mostly doing what other people are not doing, which has been a lot of fun. So I am still a CFP professional, had my own practice, left that, and have taken kind of a winding road. And I would say a big thing about me is I have a big sort of mission that I only do a max of 3 things. So personally, I focus on making sure I sleep well, I eat well, and I exercise. And professionally right now, I'm focused on the podcast that you were on and the community that you mentioned and video creation masterclass. But that's a big thing. Don't try to do it all.
That is huge. I kind of feel quite daunted just thinking about those things. As you now know, I'm not a details guy in that truest sense of the word. The community, genuinely, I speak to a lot of audiences. The community was so welcoming, so engaging, and I think certainly so open. And it was something on last week's show, or not last week's, a few weeks ago, we had a guy called Chris Budd talking about kind of the importance of people buying into him culturally as part of his business. And it's no kind of coincidence, I guess, that your community is actually a really true reflection of you, that they kind of, you've kind of brought together a lot of people that are just culturally aligned to what you're about. Was that through accident or intent?
I hope it was through the universe. And you almost made me cry just saying that, because that was my big mission coming into 2020 or 2021, I guess. And in all honesty, it kind of hit me over the head during the election. Don't know if you saw, the US had a bit of a big presidential election late last year. Just seeing the division, I stopped reading the news back in October. I was like, I'm done with this. It was bringing me down. And then you see all this division in financial services. And I was like, come on, people. There's so many great people out there. And working with Adam Owen and Next Gen Planners, and they built this amazing community. I was like, I want to do the same thing. I will now only spend time and work with people and be friends with people that give me energy. I just refuse to spend any time with people that suck energy away. So it's like, I put it out into the universe. I was like, there are, hundreds or there are millions of people out there that have that forward thinking, wonderful collaboration over competition mindset. I was like, I want to find them because we are always all better together.
Oh, I love that. It's something that kind of was raised in the community last night, that we all kind of led to believe that humans are inherently bad and out to get you. Well, actually, what I found is essentially people are good. Essentially, people want you to succeed. And I think you're quite right that the perception, you talk about the presidential debate. I know we'll go really, really deep quite quickly here, but these rabbit holes we seem to have in our conversations, which is really good. We'll follow this one. But it changes the perception, like you said, it changes the perception of everybody. So from outside the US looking in, the assumption, because of the news coverage and everything else, is then thinking that everybody is at each other. And it's only when you actually experience the culture for yourself, as I did yesterday. It's an amazing place. Yeah. Amazing community.
Yeah.
But big well done. You. I mean, that's also huge.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
But it's also traditionally in your industry as well, as you say, in the financial planning community, the financial service industry in a broader sense, traditionally been grey suited and booted, male. One of the last bastions of traditional business in its truest sense, I guess. So you're kind of smashing down doors all over the place.
I try to, and that's the thing, is those people are out there, and especially being a young woman, I feel like at some point I'm going to have to acknowledge I'm no longer the young woman I was 17 years ago when I came into the profession. But that you still hold on to that and those experiences, and people not taking you seriously and not finding other people that look like you that you can collaborate with. And it's just not true. It's what is seen on stages. It's what is seen in a lot of magazines, but that doesn't mean that that's all that's out there. And so again, finding those people and trying to change the conversation, right? Who was it that said, if you don't like the conversation, change it? So that's what I'm trying to do.
You've used speaking as a platform to create positive change and influence cultural change. And as you said, and I guess it's quite intentional that you point out that you did a lot of this on your own, a lot of the traveling on your own, a lot of your journey was made on your own. How was that as somebody who is a young woman going out into the world, trying to change everything? How did that feel for you?
I love it. It is my favorite time. I'm married. My husband is a pilot. We love traveling the world together, but there's just something about traveling by yourself. And, Nick, you actually mentioned yesterday, about how you're an introvert and how you need to go and, kind of re-energize after speaking and whatnot. And I've actually been thinking lately, I don't think anybody that knows me would call me an introvert, but I've been wondering, I was like, I should take one of those tests. I was like, maybe I am, because I love that alone time. I love the time. I travel the world. I love, going and having a glass of wine outside and watching people. And I genuinely feel invisible in the most positive way, because I just love observing other humans. And so many of my life decisions have come from watching other people. And again, that contrarian thing, being like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to end up like that. So, yeah.
When I came onto your podcast, I didn't kind of know what to expect, which is usually my usual state. My natural state is basically confusion, and that's good with me. I'm good with that. But when I came on, I didn't really know what to expect, because it was one of the first times I'd kind of done that outside of the UK or Europe, at least in the wider sense, and have those open conversations. But what struck me, and I've since noticed doing more work in the US, that culturally it's far more open. I would say there could be some certain elements around this. I was talking earlier on, I'm going off on tangents myself here now. I was talking earlier on about kind of speaking, and public speaking isn't actually part of the curriculum and the education in the UK. And I think actually it's no surprise that people can be really hesitant to step up and deliver any message. I think that's a real challenge. Speaking to people on your side of the pond, then absolutely is part of that kind of fabric that we're kind of brought up on, which is amazing. But what I was really struck by was your openness around mental health and your own experiences. When I kind of talk about my own experiences of breakdown, this is exactly the topic that we kind of really started to resonate on. And I love that, just really kind of felt that there. Because it's something that you've experienced as well, and you speak about openly. So would you mind kind of sharing with us your experiences through that?
Yeah. And I was trying to think what all I shared on that episode, but anxiety is something I've struggled with my whole life. And in so many areas of life, I have like crippling anxiety. And it's interesting. You can throw me on stage in front of thousands of people and I'm fine. But if you ask me to write 500 words for an article, it'll take me 9 hours because I literally spend like it averages, I did this a week ago, it averages me about 25 minutes per sentence when I'm writing. And I don't know why. It's just this anxiety and I overthink everything and nothing's good enough. And I don't know why. I wish I didn't have that, but I've tried to use that to my benefit and focus on, okay, well, where am I good? But it comes in all forms. So I just suddenly got panic attacks when I was in high school and I was on medication for years and I've had multiple ambulances called for me and I've had panic attacks while driving and it's terrifying. And I think that, you're like as a 14-year-old thinking I'm having a heart attack and I was like, this isn't good. And so I've had to change a lot of things in my life. And that's where I get into the max of 3. I was like, I can't try to do everything or I will run 100 miles an hour head first into a brick wall. And that's happened a few too many times. So as much as I like seeing, learning from other people and not making my own mistakes, I've definitely done that a few times and had breakdowns that have left me in bed for days or weeks on end and unable to do anything. And so it's taken a lot of that to realize, life's too short and there has to be a way of getting around this. But I also like to talk about it openly because I've had a lot of people come to me and again, they're like, oh, you're always smiling and you're so energetic and you've had this great life traveling all over the world. And I was like, yes, but you have no idea like that every single day. And Nick, even this morning, I've been having like this, anxiety issue this morning and I didn't sleep well at all. And that's my number one sign. If I don't sleep well, something's wrong and needs to change. But, everybody has something. Everybody has something.
Phrase.
And so if we... Yeah.
Sorry, Kate.
No, go.
No, it's just, you're quite right. Everyone does have something. And I think actually perspective and comparison are some of the challenges we experience. Well, who am I to feel this way about this when somebody else has got this stuff going on? Doesn't matter. If something causes you pain and frustration, you've got every right to sort it out for yourself. But we do that. And I think therein lies a bit of a challenge. You've used the phrase kind of blowing up my life before. And you reminded me when we were doing our kind of prep for this, you reminded me of that phrase. It kind of sounds like it could be, sometimes we do this intentional, whether subconsciously, but it's intentional in that truer sense where things like maybe imposter syndrome can creep in. Do you feel sometimes that given your profile and visibility and also now a community leader and influencer as a speaker, that sometimes you have a struggle to keep up with your own success, the reality of your own success?
That's a great question. And I don't know. I think I'm like in my head so much. I don't know that I actually think that much about what other people think of me. The hardest part is what I think of me, and that anxiety and the anxiety saying this isn't good enough or that's not good enough. And I tell myself over and over again, and I always say, what would I coach somebody else on? Because I've done a lot of coaching for financial planners and reminding people that, progress over perfection and your 80% is still better than most people's 100%. Just get it out there. So I know all those things. And I try to tell myself that, but it's my own battle with myself that is absolutely the biggest challenge.
That physician heal thyself. Absolutely. It's so hard to take your own advice, isn't it? I get that completely. But I've certainly found with things like imposter syndrome that it's where our self-belief can't keep up with the reality of our success. So even now in the build-up to talking to you and how I felt, how excited I am to have you here today, I know what you do. You actually do the stuff that you're doing. You're out there doing this stuff. But sometimes you, Kate Holmes, may not be able to see that.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking even this morning, I know that let's say there is that imposter syndrome or me being in my own head. So I was thinking this morning, I was like, okay, I need to do a video and I need to get it out on social media today. Because if that is my blocker, if I am thinking, oh, what do other people think of me? I know what they think of me and I know that I have a lot of value. And so it's like, I crawl myself out of my own hole. And I know that I just need to take that next step. And I'm like, don't sit here. I need to channel that energy of whatever I'm, anxious or nervous or worrying about. I need to channel it and do something.
Absolutely. I mean, you've been very open and we've had this conversation on your show, I believe, around the kind of process of therapy. And it's certainly something that I've been very open about with this audience here right now, that every Friday afternoon after 2 o'clock, the reason why nobody can book me is because that's the time where I have my counseling. That's the time where I have my therapy. Now, I use it very proactively, which actually in the UK is not really a done thing. We certainly don't talk about it too much. But for me, it's a proactive tool. It's a space. And I think especially given that I'm setting up camp in the world of mental health for most of the week, having quite deep conversations, it gives me a place, especially at the end of the week, to have that. How did therapy look for you? Kind of how did you reach out? And how does it look in the US generally? Is it something that a lot of people use proactively, or is it more still a reactive thing?
I think it's both. I know a lot of people in the US that proactively go to therapy and stay in therapy. And I know other people that honestly think it's a quack and would never, ever go see a therapist for anything. So, you've got both sides. And the US is massive, all the different cultures and areas. I mean, I always think of it more as like 6 different countries than one big one.
Absolutely,
for all the differences we have. But I've gone to therapy for a few different things. And, if you have listeners that haven't gone to therapy, honestly, it is kind of a bit like financial planning. You do need to find the therapist that is right for you. I've gone to therapists and I'm like, this just it's not getting me anywhere. It's not doing anything. So finding that right fit is a challenge. And it's helpful. It gets us to talk about and think about things that we don't really want to, but we need to get to those breakthroughs. And it's like all those little voices in the back of our head, it kind of brings them forward and gets them out if that's where they need to go.
Yeah, absolutely. We've spoken about kind of financial well-being as a term here a lot with the guests that I've had on from your kind of corner of the industry of business. And financial well-being seems to be a very subjective term, as it means different things to different people. Somebody who is outside of the financial industry, somebody who's coming in, dipping into the industry. For me, the focus is on the relationship between money and mental health, because that's kind of my angle. What does financial well-being mean to you, and how do you advocate that to your clients that you coach and you work with?
Yeah, and that is one of those tricky things, all these different terminologies. Again, I've been in for 17 years and I work with financial planners in 35 countries. Even I'm confused by so many of them and how they evolve over time. And that's one of the things we need to really work on, is getting consistency in terms of what these things mean. And for me, there's that great quote, and I'm completely blanking on who said it, but so many people spend their health to gain their wealth, and then turn around and spend their wealth to regain their health. And so when I think about financial well-being, it's about making sure that we don't do that. And that's why I focus so much on, max of 3 and making sure that I am sleeping well, eating well, exercising, because I don't want to be to a place where I've seen hundreds or thousands of people firsthand, get into their 60s and had a great career and have a ton of money and every material thing you could imagine, and die of a heart attack 6 months into retirement. I mean, what a shame.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the quote as well, by the way. It's really cool.
It's a wonderful one, and it's something that we all need to remember, because we do it, we all do it, and we get caught up, and we all think work is the end all be all, and we always ask, what do you do? And it's like, who cares what you do? What's your life look like? What are your passions? We need to change that conversation and be talking about things other than just the focus on what is your career success, because even that is a wildly subjective term that I think has gotten a bit distorted over the years.
Absolutely. I think it also runs the risk of having the terminology as such as mental health. I mean, that carries a stigma, but it's just a neutral state, like physical health.
Absolutely.
People will actually say to me, like, Nick, I have mental health. Yeah, absolutely you do. 100% of the humans on the planet have mental health. Whether it's good or bad, that's a whole different question. But I think there's the problem. We stigmatize these terms, and because of multiple meanings, I think, like you said, there is certainly space to try and clarify what these things actually mean, so it takes a stigma away. And especially with money and mental health, it's a huge anxiety trigger for a lot of people. Over the past year, for obvious reasons, it's affected people in different ways. So actually people's relationship with money would have changed in different ways. And I think one thing I really wanted to talk to you about, because bearing in mind that you are kind of goal focused, you're always kind of aspiring and growing and progressing and developing. If we have had that kind of taken away from us to some extent, well, we don't know what the end to this looks like quite yet, or when the end's even going to be in its truest sense, how can we start to move forward and progress without having the eyes on the final prize, especially from a financial point of view, I guess?
Yeah. And, it's funny. That's why when I came into the profession, having gotten my degree in photography and learning what financial planning is, and that a traditional financial plan is you create this 80-page document outlining the next 40 years of your life. And that was like the craziest thing in the world to me. I was like, why would you do that? Because I've always been a very spontaneous person. I've moved countries at the drop of a hat. I've moved states at the drop of a hat, and I always use the example of like in 2010, even nobody created a financial plan 10 years earlier that had any idea that you could have passive income from Airbnb, or you could, get out of the house and go drive for Uber or Lyft. We don't know what the future looks like. And so I wholeheartedly reject the, what's going to happen in 30 years. And yes, you need to make sure you're saving and taking care of yourself. But we put so much focus then on the way down future, and we don't focus enough on now and what's going on now. And we're either stuck in the past, we're looking to the future. And so I try to just, incorporate little things like my husband is only home 12 days at a time and he's gone for 16. And so like you, I stop at noon on Fridays, and I promised him I will not touch my laptop or do any work until 9 a.m. Monday. Because we need to remember, like, those adventures that we have over those weekends, that's what's important. That's what I want to look back on, whether it's 10 years or 40 years from now. There's no way I'm going to know what I would have done on any one of those Friday afternoons. So, I think we all just need to focus a bit more on what's going on now. Are we doing the best mentally, physically, financially, emotionally? And then the rest will fall into place, I think.
Absolutely. I love the rule of the max 3 of each thing. That's really resonated with me. That's a really cool tip. Thank you. I mean, what I loved, I was reading the notes from beforehand that you kindly sent over, that I'm not sure I could have a better life right now. I love that. That's beautiful. And actually that comes after a year of pandemic and lockdown and everything else. But how has life changed for you? I'm so pleased it's in a great place, but it must look different in a lot of ways. So how has life changed from you from, say, February to 2020?
Well, and I'll go back just a few months before that. So I had what was, in so many ways my absolute dream job prior to that, but my, mental and physical and emotional health was not handling it well. And so I had to listen to my body. I had no choice. And I had a few breakdowns there, and I just kept getting sick. And I was like, okay, as much as I love this job, I can't do it. My body won't hold up. And so I quit with absolutely no idea what was next. And I told myself, I was like, I cannot make a plan. I said 3 months, I'm not allowed to even consider what I'm going to do next. I need to just focus on that eating well, sleeping well, and exercise, and take my stress down and everything. And then 2020, honestly, the pandemic for me couldn't have come at a better time. I mean, it's unfortunate that it had to happen, but it did. So I'm going to be grateful for the timing of it, and that the world slowed down. And I never would have met Adam Owen if it weren't for that. And as big as my network was around the world, it grew exponentially because of the pandemic and people slowing down. And then, like I said earlier, it was that heading into all the ugliness of, the presidential election and so much stuff that happened here, and just seeing this division. And I was like, okay, what do I want my life to look like? What do I want to, look back on, whether it's 5 years or 30 years? And I was like, just knowing that I have brought amazing people together to do amazing things, to actually make a difference in this profession and therefore in this world, while having a whole lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. So away from work, and you obviously have a big focus on health and well-being, but what do you love to do? What you got, hobbies and sports and lots of different things? What do you love to do? What really makes you tick? What makes your soul sing?
It would be traveling. So that's been weird, not getting on an airplane for a while. But my husband, I said, he's a pilot. He's actually never stopped flying throughout all of this. So I've been a little jealous. His schedule has not changed, but we lived in Las Vegas and he went a bit stir crazy, being home for 12 days with nothing to do and everything shut down. So being the spontaneous people we up and moved to Florida. a couple months ago. And it's amazing. We never thought we would own a single family home, but it's been so wonderful. And that gets into the mental health. And we've talked about that a lot, is now that we've got this property. And for a while, I keep going out and I'll spend an hour in the morning weeding. Right. And we know how good that fresh air is and connecting with the earth. And we have a canal behind us with turtles and fish. And we have all these ducks and lizards everywhere. And we will sit outside for hours and hours with no music or anything, just being in nature. Like, it feels like a Brazilian rainforest in our backyard. And we've got a pool, just lounge in the pool, but it's amazing to see how impactful that is versus we've always lived in condos and apartments and everything. And this has been really, really healthy. And we own an airplane. So when he's home, we go flying and do little mini getaways.
That's fantastic. Great stuff. Here in the UK next week, it's Mental Health Awareness Week. The theme for this year is around nature. You kind of alluded to it there. Plays a big part, does it, in terms of keeping your well-being in tip-top shape?
It does. And that's something, I'd read about it. I've read about it for, years and years, and you always know. And in Denver, I used to go for long bike rides and I loved it, just being out on these amazing paths. And, that was kind of my meditation time, but it's been a totally different experience being here and not something I ever thought we would do. And honestly, it's entirely due to the pandemic that we moved here. So that is another actually great thing that came out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always silver linings to everything, and even though they may seem harsh at the time, it does create other opportunities, doesn't it? I do absolutely get that. So, big fan of traveling. Where's kind of been your best kind of few places that you've been to in your time, kind of outside of the US?
Yeah, well, living in Melbourne, Australia, I never thought anywhere would top that. I just absolutely loved it there. I never wanted to leave, had every intention of staying. And then 3 months before I graduated, they changed the immigration rules and kicked me out. So that was tough. But I spent a lot of time in South Africa. I absolutely love it there. I love Cape Town. It's just an amazing place. And I mean, I love Russia. I'm 50% Russian. So I grew up, knowing families from Russia, and I've been there a number of times. I love it. So many places in Europe. I love the diversity of everywhere in the world. And that's what I love is I feel like the more places I go, the more places I still have yet to go. The list actually gets longer.
Have you actually written any books?
No.
There's so many books inside your stories. It's untrue.
Yeah.
And not just from a business perspective, we're talking about your personal journeys, your traveling, your experiences. I can absolutely see kind of like a travel documentary or something. That could be definitely on the cards for you. It'd be great. I'll definitely watch that.
Okay. But see, then that gets into the whole writing thing. And then because I've had a lot of people ask me that over the years. And I'm like, I have to say, this is a funny thing. So especially for women, I would say this affects a lot more. I actually grew up, I was a really, really great writer. And if I'm writing just for fun, I can write and write and write. And I do actually think I'm a pretty good writer. But when it comes to business, that's when my brain freaks out. And so that's when it's not an imposter syndrome, but it's almost like we have to put on that mask, and pretend to be this super professional, polished person. That's the thing I've struggled with, that I've been trying to overcome for a long time. And I do think it affects especially young women more than anything.
Yeah, I can understand that from what I've certainly heard from other people as well. It's kind of like once you do that, you're out there to be poked and prodded and critiqued and criticized and everything else. Whereas more so with your own experiences and stories, that they're yours and nobody can tell you that you're wrong in that sense.
Yeah.
So I get that. I mean, gender was something that we mentioned in last night's session around that. Again, I can't speak for the US, but certainly in the UK, with my monthly kind of speaking academies, that 80% are female. But when I get to the professional events, the stage events, so there's a desire to tell a message, to deliver a story, to step up. But when I get to the professional events, especially at conference and stadium level, 80% are male. So there's a disconnect. Now, do you feel in your experience that that's kind of like a traditional hangover? That's because it's coming away from a certain point where maybe women felt they never had that platform to speak?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, that women will, even if they apply for speaking gigs, they'll often still go to men. Or you even mentioned in last night's session, you're talking about sometimes you have to pay to play, right? And people will pay to speak at events. And oftentimes, honestly, it is generally more older men that will do that. because they come from wealthier businesses or whatever. And women often just won't get paid. I've even had a situation in the last couple of years where it was an annual conference for a well-known organization. And I know personally what other people have been paid to speak at that event in the past. And so I quoted my fee, and the response was, I understand that you may be in a personal situation that, means you need to get paid for this. And wow. I was just like, I was so wildly offended. I was like, no, it's because
that's terrible.
I was like, it's because I'm a professional and this is your annual conference and you're making money. And it was just the craziest thing. And, that's something that could knock a lot of people down. Now for me, it's kind of a fascinating story to look back on and just shake my head. But, can you imagine a lot of women that just start out and that's the response they get? And they'd be like, oh, okay. It's hard to get back up and keep going sometimes.
Yeah. But again, it's people like yourself that are driving positive change, because even though, as you know, I'm a passionate kind of advocate for championing kind of members of the community, sections of the community that you're not even part of or represent, because you can use your platform to create change. It won't be as effective as actually you doing this and driving that through being visible, having the profile that you have, leading the communities you do, and actually leading an industry into a new generation. And it's lovely work. Simply just lovely work. It's amazing.
Thank you.
So what's next? What's next for Kate Holmes?
Just focusing on where I'm at now. I don't want to, somebody asked me earlier this week, they said, what are your 5-year business goals? And I honestly just kind of laughed out loud. I said, I don't do that. Again, I don't believe in that. If you asked me 5 years ago or 5 years before that, or 5 years before that, right? Nothing has ever panned out. Sometimes I would have way undershot my goals. Sometimes I would have way overshot my goals. So, I do try to do like loose 1-year goals, but then I really focus on quarterly, and I especially just focus on monthly. Just stay present, do what I can do today and this week.
Yeah, I like that. They obviously didn't know they were speaking to somebody who moved in a pandemic just because.
Right.
They picked the wrong audience to ask you that question. What's your 5-year goals?
Yeah.
So the question I like to ask every guest that we have on the show. So I want to set the scene that I am now the MC of the O2 Arena in London. 20,000 people have paid their hard-earned money to come and hear you speak. I'm just about to announce you to the stage, and your walk-on music kicks in. That track that just motivates you, that gets you pumping at peak state. What would that track be?
This sounds kind of funny, but I would choose Meghan Trainor's I Love Me.
Cool. Good choice. And that is going to go on the playlist along with everybody else on the season. And that will be available at the end of the season. I can't wait. This playlist is going to be like immense. It's really, really cool. Was awesome. Your session last night where somebody chose a walk-on music, Baby Shark?
Yes, that was linked up.
That is the most random suggestion I've ever heard. And so kind of kudos to her. Absolutely good work, Lisa.
Yeah, right. Hey, it's catchy. It would be memorable.
It would work. It would absolutely work. So again, big round of applause to Kate Holmes.
And Nick, I mean, come on, you are such an inspiration. That session last night and everything you do, you continue to inspire me and challenge me. And the fact that you talk so openly about the stuff that so few other people do, I so appreciate you, Nick, and everything that you're doing.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I strongly suggest everybody connect with Kate. All of her links are in the bio. Please do check her out. Strongly recommend that. So again, big thanks to Kate for donating her time to be with us today. And for everybody else, please stay tuned for the Forge Ahead show. The next episode, I have another amazing guest coming up, so please stay tuned. That'll be with you next Wednesday. In the meantime, I'll see you later, guys. Take care. Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye. And that's a wrap. A big thank you for tuning in to today's show. Please stay tuned and hit subscribe for future episodes, bringing you amazing guests, sharing amazing content and amazing insights. Really excited to bring you these. The Forge Ahead show is sponsored by nickelston.com. If you want to connect with me, you can find all the ways possible through the website. If you want to drop me a message, always great to hear from you. But in the meantime, if I don't catch you before, I'll see you at the next episode. And you take care, guys. Cheers now. Bye. Bye-bye.